Hey folks, this video is going to be about UV mapping. So UV map is the thing that dictates how material will be laid out on the surfaces of your model. And in the last video we can see that there's a lot of stretching that's happening in this model, and mostly it's because of a lack of a UV map that it has. So here I'm just going to show you the basic way to, first of all, to just simply have a UV map. Second, about how to create a custom UV map. So first of all, I want to remove this surface here. This is not that related to UV map, but by having less surfaces in your object, your UV map will have better reading on the pixels. So also we have less work to do for having less surfaces. You don't have to do this. It's perfectly fine to keep it like that, but it just reduces the amount of work you do. So first of all, come over here on top, UV, click UV editor. We can see it should look like this when you open. Now, if I click on this checkerboard that I'm having right here, click on it, I can see precisely how the UV is being projected based on this. This consider when the surface here is being considered a long stretch like here. So if I move the surface, I can see like I'll move to the V part, I move to the 0 part, it start reading the V's and a 0. Now if I rotate this, that rotates as well. So right now I'm reading the top part of the V, I rotate away, and like that. Now I'm reading it on the correct orientation. Now, of course, these two are wrong, right? We want this to be as large as possible, so we're reading as much material as possible, first of all. Also, we want the shape to make sense, to somewhat representing the what this look like after unfolding. So one of the most basic and lazy tool that you can use, which works most of the time, is you come to UV, go to automatic, click on it, and now you can see what the UV will look like when you properly unfold every single surface. And as we can see right now, this already improved by tenfold, right? All the checkerboard is where we organized, is having normal square shape, and then all the text at the center is reading properly. Now, say I'm satisfied with this, okay, and which most of the time, if it's just like a quick background model, I will be satisfied with this. It really depends on what your hero asset is. The more important the asset you have, the more time you will spend on crafting the UV. So what I did there, I orient this very quickly and see if everything is reading upright, and apparently they are. And I'm just gonna select the whole thing, go to modify, layout. Now everything's layout, and now if I export this, right, it's going to read the piece of texture accordance to the density of this. Let's say I want the texture on here to be denser. And so simply press R, and I'm scaling them up. And since I know for the fact that this is going to be reading a repeating texture, so I don't really care about the seams that's having on in between the UV map, because each one of this square is representing one repetition of the material you are using. So I think the original scale was pretty great like that. So bam, that's done. One button, just automatic. And I imagine this should be quite similar. So UV automatic, and there you have it. It's all spliced up. However, we can see the seam is being shown on the edge of here. So if we look closely on the model, we might see some separation here. This might or might not cause trouble, but however, because my model is just a flat piece of steel that does not have too much detail on it, I doubt it will bring trouble. So, you know, I'll keep this as this and see if there's any further problem by keep using automatic. So here I'm going to use automatic again, UV, automatic. And probably not, because if we go to UV shell, we can see how the shells are being spliced up. And let's say I'm going to apply a wood texture instead of, or even a marble texture, we will start seeing seams here. So let's export this and we can see, we can visualize what I'm talking about when I'm saying seams, because it's not obvious on the checkerboard. So here, export, cabinet number 1. Going to Unreal, re-import. And we can see the stretching already is completely gone. Now we can just start applying material and then come to highlight and see, okay, this piece is for here. So we just need to type in marble, the one that I plugged in earlier, and we can see that it reads phenomenally already. Let's see if we can see the seams in here. Now, because of the BC nature of the marble, the seam is not really showing. But if we look closely, we can see, you know, like this line here, it should wrap around and dip down, right? But instead of it just being cut like this, seams, they can be continuous. Now, again, if it's just a background piece that's far away from the major scene, that it will not bring problems. However, let's say I have a couple pieces of tool here lay on top of it and I want to do a couple close-up shot, it will bring a problem, right? Because if we look closely, we will start seeing problems. So at that case, we'll have to modify this, or craft this rather. So imagine a box that I have to unwrap like that, right? When this flowing up, right? This piece can be continuous. However, in here we need to make cuts, right? If I cut a piece, cut a line here and cut a line here, this whole thing will be able to unwrap very nicely, right? Say this piece, it flips left, and this piece, it flips forward. Same thing here, I need a double cuts here. Now, how do we do that? It's very simple. Maya comes with a tool. I have it right here, 3D cut and sew. There should be in UV, 3D cut and sew tool. So if you don't have here, come here. So 3D cut and sew. Now, because we generated this UV here, all the seams are being pre-cut. So right now I want to remove all the cuts. I already have the white lines representing the cuts. All right, I want a minimum amount of cuts. So I'll go to our exit tool, or I'll press Q. Simply pressing Q. Go to object mode, UV, and camera base. What that translates is if I come to UV again, it generates a UV exactly on the shape of the camera, and it removes all the seams on an object. There will be no more seams. That essentially generate a blank piece of UV for us. Now I simply go to 3D cut and sew. and start cutting. So in 3D cut and sew, X means cut, S means sew. So I click on this edge, I press X, now that's being cut, and we can see it's highlighted by white. Let's say I want to sew it, I made a mistake, S, it's gone. So X, cut, X, cut, cut, and cut. Now all the cuts are already done, right? This piece unfolds nicely, this piece and this piece wraps around, this naturally unfolds. So now we can unfold it, right? Because right now the UV is still cramped together based on our camera view. So we need just, now I'm still in the cut and sew tool, okay? I didn't quit it. So if you quit it, come back to 3D cut and sew. So hold right click, component, UV shell, select the whole shell. Right now, because everything is continuous, so this is a whole piece of shell, and I press D. Before I press it, I'll just open up the UV editor so we can visualize it. Press D. See how this unfolds just like a box will do. If I turn out the checkerboard, we can see how this one here wraps around, how all the checkerboards wraps around. That's what I want. So now I want to orient this. So instead of just using this turning left and right, we can go to modify. Orient shell should be this. Okay. Say I want this to orient the other way. This really depends on how your material is laid out. But let's say I want to orient this way. I just need to rotate to the roughly the direction of the way I want it to orient, and then orient shell. Now I just need to care about the density. So let's say I wanted to make it denser, like so. Okay, now that piece is finished. Let's go back to Unreal and see if there's any other pieces that I want to do the same thing. So this reads about right. I wouldn't go into it so much because this piece is rather simplistic. There's not much to look at. So it's harder for the reader to look at where the seams are. So that's finished. We just need to export it again. File. Oops, I set up my first frame. File, export selection, and then cabinet number 1. So this guy here, re-import. Now see how the textures wraps around correctly, like so, like so. Now that's it. Sounds simple, right? That's it about UV map. You know, you cut it correctly and you wrap around correctly. Now the trick is all about cutting. So let's do. So that's it. That's it about the tutorial. If you're confident, you can click away. So I'll do one more here just for demonstration because this is a rather trickier shape in comparison. Let's do this one. So that represents this in my scene. Of course, first of all, I need to separate everything. So also I need to set up the correct material group. So this is a combined practice between this video and the last video. Okay, that groups up the history here. Group these guys up, separate them. Object mode, to the history here. the vanity itself. Extract this guy. This surface, I'll simply run that. Now here, let's start from the easiest. First of all, I still need to color code like how I did here, so right click, assign existing material, and then red one. Was it just red? Yeah. And then blue, black. Say I want this to be the same type of steel as this one, so I will assign this as black as well. And I can see this being another one, so let's do green. Okay, so this, I will cut it again. Right, because the pre-cuts that happen here, so I need to, first of all, it's probably safe for me to merge all the vertices first. And then UV, camera base, that removes all the seams that we saw earlier. And then cut and sew all the seams I got. Now, this, this, this. It's X to cut. Here to here. X. That should be it. Now, go right click, component, UV shell, select the whole shell, press D. Now we go to UV editor, and see if this unfolds, and apparently there's some weird stretching that's happening. Likely because of the hole at center, we might have to cut this out separately. So let's do that. That will make our work easier. Okay, and then I just need to, now this is a vertical ring, we just need to do one cut, or we can do two cuts instead. So one cut here and one cut here. So one shell, two shell, three shells. Now I just need to select all the shells, press D, and UV editor. Now, yeah, everything's straight. Modify, orient shells. Now, I want this to be, let's go back, get out of the 3D cut and sew tool, get to this key here, go to UV shell, and then I will it straight. Modify, orange shells, select all the shells, and layout. So modify layout or Control L. It's here. I probably want to make these two continuous, but hey, no one's gonna look that close, right? So around here. Now the good thing that for me to keep an eye out is see the density between this and this. If these two density are so far off, it will be obvious when you apply the material. So it looks like this part need to be denser. Shell. Even a tad denser. So a good way to do it as well is to export the texture from Quixel map, Quixel bridge, and then we can visualize it directly. Or perhaps I can do it right now. So say here I have this marble material and I want to go to the folder of it. This is the color of the texture, so we only need this. Right click, and I should be able to, yeah, back in the day it's source location, but nowadays I believe is export. Yep. And then let's put it on desktop. There you go. Now I just need to import this into Maya. So I have this object selected, so I'm gonna plug this into red. Should I? Yeah, let's do it real quick. So here I just need to drag and drop. I mean, okay, and then plug this into base color. So our color go into base color, and we have the color of the material already. So if I go to here, this little ball with checkerboards on it, that means show texture. Right, now I just need to click on this, assign existing material, and it's red. So right now all the reds are this. Now there's some, is it the orientation? No, it shouldn't be. Let's put this side by side, and then we probably turn off about the same. That it also be affected by the layout of the texture itself, which is fine. Yeah. Or perhaps I can make this a tad larger, since this surface is larger than that. So one extra safe maneuver that we can do is we select both of them and then modify layout. Now these two should be scaled uniformly, so as we can see this is larger than that, and then we can scale up everything together like so. Now again, I don't care about this is outside of the this UV layout, because I know the material applied on top of it is going to be repeatable. So like that. And let's start UVing this. Now same thing, I used automatic for it, so I'm gonna use automatic here again. So let's use automatic from here as well. Now this will be a tricky shape. As we can see, there's no UV present here. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to automatic this and see how much sense it makes. Probably not much sense. Yeah. But if it's a repeatable or just a steel, which is essentially solid color, we might be able to get away with it. Unwrapping tubes like this is always a hack, so let's just automatic. This I can see me doing it this way instead, and go to 3D cut and sew, component, UV shell, and then I just unfold the whole thing without any cuts, and then modify orient shell. There we go. The reason I don't want to cut anything is because it's like a continuous piece. I don't want to see any seams in a continuous sink type of situation here. Now all these should be fine. Now this might bring trouble, so let's just rotate this real quick. Here, this reads like that. Same case here. Alright, and then I orient. And we can scale it. Alright, I can do the same operation that I did earlier. Select both of these, layout, and then I scale everything up. About that. Scale these, so there we have it. See how this turns out. So sync, we need this, we need this. Delete history, move that into the group. This is keyed. File, export selection, sync. Let's find the sync. Let's do done. Yeah. And was there 5 materials here? Why are there? Right, there's another piece there. Yep, it's always good to double check your model. So where is it? There you go. So UV show. Okay, we should be able to do faces. And then I should be able to just automatic it. Even though this is essentially meaningless, it's just a piece that I can create some sort of shadow that's casting down. So it doesn't really matter here. I'll just keep it as is. Object mode. What was it? Red? There you go. Sync. Frame number 1, export selection, sync. Right here, re-import. Now, yep, things looks pretty normal. We can come in here. Yep, this is an empty group. Use a trash can to delete it. Okay, now here, let's do marble and that. I don't have a material for that, but I have, this was called plaster, and these are steel. Oh, these looks pretty sick, honestly. I kind of like it. Also sort of expose the lack of beveling around the edges. When it's up close, we might want to do something about it. Okay. Just one more texture at the sink. How should I do this? Sink, some sort of ceramic. Hopefully there's one. I remember they don't though. Surfaces. No, not tiles, but rather continuous piece. So I'm guessing steel marble type of feeling at the end of the day. Yeah, all these are tiles. So stone, limestone. Yeah. Something like that. Okay. Yeah. Anyhow, of course the color of this doesn't make much sense. It's everything at once right now. I probably want this white instead. That's basically it about UV mapping. If you make this far, if you make it into this far of the video, I can also show you the basic Quixel material optimization, or the function that Quixel has wrote for us, how to use it. Now these function in the future, perhaps if you get into Unreal, then you start writing of these for yourself. But here we can start using what is provided to us by Quixel. So say I want this to be whiter, so saturation should be less. Right, perhaps I bump the brightness up a bit. Perhaps I want to see the black dots, so I'll bump the contrast perhaps. Should be reflected, yeah, on real time in our scene, so I can play around the number. Look how everything feels. Kind of like this grayish look. Right, perhaps tin would not do much here, so contrast. Okay. Say I want to sink whiter as well, so the limestone material here, check these two out. Say brightness, yes, perhaps not so rough, or it's because of the sunlight is casting down, so things look extra bright. Okay, now that's basically it. Again, start comparing these two, see how things are laying out. Yeah, that's it for this week's video. I may or may not make another video on how to modify your models to add more details that catches shadow. As we can see, like shadow here is really sharp, but usually things are not perfectly sharp in real life, right? We have at least a bit of beveling or bending, rounded edges on every single edge. So as for the future video,